Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Amy, I'm a manifestation coach and a relationship mentor, and this channel is all about merging spirituality and psychology so that you can manifest your relationships. And in today's video, I recently did a poll about what your personal situations are, and a lot of you are actually in touch with your person. So I wanted this video to be a bit of a how-to guide if you are struggling, because I know when my person came in, all of my hard work kind of went out of the window and I'd feel super triggered. So if this is you, I just want to give you some reassurance and some guidance as well on how to handle that situation. But if you like my content, please subscribe to this channel and leave this video a like so other people have access to it. I've also got a self-study course, which I will link in the description box below. And this course is there to absolutely revolutionize your self-concept when it comes to relationships. So check that out, but let's dive in. So as I said, a lot of people who get in touch with me and a lot of people who follow my channel are actually in touch with the person, but they are stuck in a position where they're wanting more from them. They're not really getting any further forward. And I can completely relate to this because there wasn't a lot of content out there when I was manifesting my person. There wasn't a lot of content out there of actually what to do when they come back in. And I personally struggled because I thought, oh, I can just live in the end and keep ignoring what's going on and just miraculously have this person move in with me or ask me to marry them. And I found out over and over and over again that this was not the case, that I still had work to do, and that all the triggers that I'd released and all the beliefs that I'd released when I was apart from him, yes, brilliant. It got me in a position where I felt a lot more confident going into the relationship, but actually a lot of my personal behavior patterns were still present. They were still there and I was still pretty much acting from them. So this idea that, we'd get back together and all will be rosy and it'll be all sunshine and rainbows wasn't what I experienced. I was still triggered. And first of all, I want you to actually integrate the belief that it is okay that you feel triggered. It is okay. It is normal. When you've gone through a breakup or if you've been single for a long time and a new person has come in, it is okay that you feel activated. Of course you feel activated. You've been wanting this thing for a long time and it's come in, and of course you are going to have some sort of reaction to that. So you've received your text message, or they've called you, or somebody you've gone on a date with you really like, or a new person or somebody that you know. Either way, any of it's fine, but they've come in and you feel activated. So what do we do when we feel activated? I mean, from my perspective, from it being an ex-partner, a lot of what came up from me was old resentment. So I would feel triggered in the way that I would still be angry at this person and I would be pressuring that person to give me answers. Why did you dump me? And that didn't go well at all. And that actually pushed him further away. Another thing that happened was that I would let him come in and I would feel okay for a few days or weeks or however long. And then the fear would come in. What if this happens again? What if they leave me again? What if this isn't the manifestation? What if I'm just being delusional and this isn't what I think it is? And these things are all okay. And it's so important that you acknowledge that, yes, I feel triggered and here's why I feel triggered. I'm afraid that this is going to happen again. I'm afraid that this person's going to leave me again, because it's just an indicator of where you need to look at. And also, when you are building bridges with somebody and you are getting back into the throes of the relationship again, it does take a lot of spotting the patterns. If I draw on my own experience, we would pretty quickly get back into the pattern of conflict, of needs not being met, of not listening to each other, because they were just old patterns, which of course I didn't work on when I was on my own because there was no one showing it to me. I didn't feel particularly triggered because I wasn't with him. But when these patterns re-emerged, it took a lot for me to sit and relax whilst this was going on. So I actually had some concept of why this was happening, what I was telling myself about it, what stories were going into my head. and to be able to sort of sort things out quite quickly. And a lot of that, being honest, was down to stubbornness and, you know, the need to be right and the need to feel like I was justified in how I felt, and, you know, the resentment, and he had to answer why he'd broken up with me so many times. And it put a lot of pressure on the relationship. So what I had to do in the final breakup was actually acknowledge that these things had happened, and that if I was to get into this relationship again, it's going to happen again unless I address it and heal it. It was as simple as that. And I had to, on my own, relive some of the conversations we had. I relived some of the conflicts and thought to myself, okay, what would I do differently this time? Well, instead of getting my back up and being stubborn and being harsh, maybe I'd relax and, you know, try and actually communicate how I felt in a calm way instead of butting heads all the time, because it was absolutely destroying both of us. We would go through this merry-go-round time and time and time again, and it would be so heartbreaking. And I didn't want that for myself anymore. I didn't want that for him either. It wasn't fair on either of us. And, you know, there was a lot of judgment. There was a lot of bullets being fired, you know, and we were hurt. And as much as we don't like to think, you know, our words do hurt people. Our words mean something. And we can't just expect either ourselves or the other person to brush these under the carpet, because then we're going to get a lot of hidden resentment. So what I would definitely recommend, if your person's come in and if it is that you've got a pattern of conflict going on, is to talk about it when you're both in a really calm state and say, you know, start with yourself and say, you know, I am sorry that I said this to you. The reason why this happened was because I felt activated, I felt rejected, I felt ignored, abandoned, whatever it was, so that they've got an idea of why their behavior is affecting you in such a way, and also give them the opportunity to say it as well. Communication in relationships is so pivotal and so important that in the manifesting community, we ignore this because we're told to ignore the current reality, just stay in the end, stay in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and all will happen, all will come to fruition. And that is true, but also you've got to cooperate. You've got to be a cooperative component. So if you want a healthy, loving relationship with somebody that's like a ride or die partner, you are going to have to change. You are going to have to adapt to situations. You are going to have to let some of these destructive, toxic patterns go, because the psychology is there. You can't just say what you want to somebody and all will be well. That doesn't work. No matter how you try to affirm over it, manifest over it, it will not work. There's still a person on the other end of what you're saying, and your actions do affect other people, and your actions do say a lot about how you can handle relationships. And if you want a healthy one, you're going to have to let go of all these unhealthy patterns. And sometimes that is not easy, particularly with matters of the heart, like a relationship. And as I say, especially if it's somebody that you've really wanted for a long time, you know, you are going to have to let go of these patterns. And it is going to have to start with you letting go of these patterns. So there's no point sitting there thinking, well, I'll change when they change, because that's not how this works. They'll change when you do. You have to lead by example. And stubbornness sometimes, as with me, there's no judgment here on anybody that's stubborn, because I was the most stubborn person in the world when it came to my relationship. If I felt wronged in any way, or if I felt judged in any way, I would let them know. Even if they didn't mean it, even if they'd apologise, I still would struggle to let things go. But we have to, because that is at the root of what a healthy relationship is, where you can communicate properly and you've got healthy behaviours and healthy patterns, where nobody's afraid that anyone's going to finish the relationship or end the relationship. Nobody's afraid. You feel comfortable around each other, and you can cultivate this. So I would encourage you to ask yourself, okay, where did it go wrong last time, and what can I do differently? How can I show up differently? Not how I want them to show up. I want them to show up as this, that, and the other, because it doesn't work like that. You need to show up how you want to show up. You need to show up as the person that already has this relationship. And if you already had the healthy, loving relationship, you certainly wouldn't be stubborn towards your partner. You certainly wouldn't stonewall. You certainly wouldn't cling or feel or be desperate or put the pressure on them to help you feel better. And I appreciate sometimes this is hard to do. But what do you want more? I had to ask myself, what do I want more? Do I want to be right, or do I want this relationship? Which one is it? And of course, I would always choose the relationship. And changing sometimes was hard because I didn't notice what I was doing a lot of the time. And I had to really become hyper and super aware of how I was conducting myself in this relationship. Where had I gone wrong? Instead of laying all the blame at his doorstep and saying, well, you've done this, this, and this wrong, I had to really acknowledge and accept and forgive myself for showing up that way and what I could do differently. And it takes vulnerability, it takes courage, it takes sometimes genuine apologies of your behavior and the actions that you've taken. But from a manifesting perspective, when you drop the judgment and you drop the stubbornness and you apologize, guess what's going to happen? They will start to do the same as well. But it starts with you. And sometimes that's difficult to accept, because as human beings, if we've been wronged, we don't want to take the first step. We don't want to be the one to make things right, because it's so validating when the other person does it. But when you start doing it, they'll start doing it. I also get a lot of messages where people are trying to manifest someone or manifest a specific person, but are really, really rigid, and it's got to come from them. Why has it got to come from them? Why is it that they need to take action before you'll take action? Why are you expecting that person to do something that you will not do? Because that's not how this works. You won't get somebody willing to do something that you won't be willing to do. When you are willing to take the first step, sometimes you don't even have to do it. Just the willingness to do it is enough for the outside to change and for that pattern to break. So the point of this video, if you are in this situation and you are in touch with your person and you're feeling anxious and you're feeling terrified and you're feeling rejected or ignored, or they're not texting you enough, or it's not going the way you want it to go, be okay with being triggered by it. Be okay with being triggered by it and think about, okay, how am I showing up now? Am I showing up as somebody who, if they send one word text, I'm going to match them and send a one word text? Because that isn't how this works. If you're mirroring them, if you're changing your behavior to mirror them, things aren't going to change, and you're going to get stuck in this cycle of one word texts and feeling ignored, feeling like you're not worthy or valued by that person. But when you concentrate on how you are showing up and not sending one word texts in a response, then that is what's going to change it. And it's not to come from a place of, oh, I'm just going to bite the bullet and do it. No, we don't do that. We say, right, okay, they're showing up like that. I'm going to let them be like that. This is how I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up as somebody who is wanting this relationship, somebody who isn't conditioning the relationship. Not saying that, this is how it's got to happen, because all you're doing is you're just blocking the infinite ways that this can happen. If you are saying that this person needs to contact me and otherwise I'm not going to do anything, then you're going to be stuck in that cycle for a very long time until you realize that actually it has got to come from me. And really dig into that. If you are saying that the action has got to come from your person, because I was there, I did this, I was like, I am not texting him, not over my dead body am I texting him, and I will die on that hill. And really, it was just masking the fear of rejection. It was masking that fear that there might be somebody else, that they're over me, that they've moved on. And once I'd managed to sort of process that internally of thinking, okay, yeah, I am afraid of rejection, but I can handle rejection. I can handle these scenarios that I'm making up in my head. I can handle it if all that happened. Because am I going to let this fear stop me from going after what I want? And I decided not. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to text him tomorrow, but I didn't even get a chance to because he'd already texted me by then. So that is how this works. You're not going to get anywhere by digging your heels in, by being stubborn about it and not taking the first step, or if you're too afraid to take the first step, because you've got to be a cooperative component. And, you know, unfortunately, some of the manifesting teachings that we have ignore the psychology behind it, ignore actual practicalities of being in a relationship day to day. Because if you're going to ignore what's going on in front of you and just keep going into your mind and imagine you're both happy, that person is going to suffer because of this, because you're going to just ignore that person's needs. You're going to ignore, you know, you're not going to validate your partner. You're not going to have an interdependent relationship with your partner because you're not prepared to actually be present in the situation. You're not prepared to move forward and resolve whatever's going on if you're just going to, okay, I'm just going to go and I'm just going to manifest this being okay. And, you know, my partner had said to me so many times, you know, I get so angry because you just don't listen to me. And he was right. I didn't listen to him. I wasn't listening to him. I would just go within and affirm over it. No, we're happy now. We're happy now. We're happy now. And actually it made him worse because he wasn't, you know, there wasn't the communication there. I wasn't validating his feelings, and his feelings were valid. What he was saying was right. I wasn't listening to him. And as hard as a pill that was to swallow, I had to think, okay, how am I going to show up as a partner that actually values their other half, that actually cares about what their other half says? Am I going to take his needs and his interests as my own best interest? Because when he's happy, I'm happy. If you can take this on board, you'll find yourself so much less stuck, because you're sitting there at the moment afraid to take any action or not taking any action. And you feel you basically boxing yourself in a corner, but there is action you can take. You can extend an olive branch to somebody. Doesn't mean that the manifestation's not working, because this is all part of the manifestation. You are being transformed into somebody that can show up as a healthy, secure person in your relationship. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, and if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below and I will do my best to get to you. And otherwise, I shall see you in the next video.